I might not be that kind of person who really takes care of his own hair and makes sure that every strand of hair sits perfectly. I might not be that guy. But, that being said, if I had Josh Clooney's hair, I could be that guy. Hello brothers and sisters, my name is Daidarius and welcome to the review of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's kind of a weird title, but considering what kind of movie this is, it's kind of fitting. So Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is basically a new interpretation of the Odyssey. You know, the old Greek story about Odysseus. This right here. But it's an old Greek tale that combined with the Iliad, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was the basic construction of the old Greek mythology. So now you know that. In case I'm wrong, then now you know what didn't construct the old Greek mythology. So I'm off to a good start here. Yes, let's just move on along. Now this is not just me, sitting down and analyze this movie in depth to come to you with the claim that this is in fact a reconstruction, modern reconstruction of the Odyssey. No. They actually, proclaim that in the beginning of the movie. So there you go. But nonetheless, it is a movie directed by the Coen brothers, which you might know also created and directed No Country for Old Men, which I recently reviewed on this channel. So, is this another good movie? And in case you don't know what the Odyssey is about, then okay, I'm gonna give you a quick overlook of the plot in this movie. But in this movie, not the Odyssey plot, just the plot in this movie. So here goes. So what you have three prisoners, Elmet, Pete, and Elmar. They escaped prison back in 18 something or 19 something. I'm not quite sure about the time and place, but I'm not quite sure when, but it is roughly in the beginning of the 20th century. They escaped prison and now they are on the hunt for a treasure that Emirate has buried somewhere. And they need to get there before a specific date and specific time, because if they don't, then for some reason the treasure will be gone. Now, throughout the journey from prison escapees until they get to the treasure part, they meet a lot of obstacles. They meet, let's say, a cyclops. They meet some sirens. And they also create, or at least make a cover of a song. Now, that part is not in the old Odyssey, but nonetheless, they create a cover of the song, which, in case you haven't seen the movie before, is explaining the thumbnail because it's a very famous scene in the movie. You might have seen it somewhere where Josh Clooney is kind of mimicking to a more capable singer. But nonetheless, they do a lot of kind of different ordeals, mini adventures contained in this big adventures, and on trying to, as quick as possible, get to this one spot before this time happens, because then the treasure will be gone. Yeah. That is basically this movie. So what do I like about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? First of all, I need to address this. Just the fact that this is the first movie in history with digitally color-corrected effects is mind-blowing. I mean, I even thought you did it beforehand, but you didn't. This is the first one. And you do see it. Not that it's a bad job, but you do see it because it kind of sometimes differs between natural colors and this sepia overlay that it creates, but it does enrich the story. I would say enrichen the style of this movie, because this is not a movie taking place in a normal world like all other Coen brothers movies, or at least those I have seen. The style of lines, the way people speak is not normal. I have a hard time to be convinced that people at some point spoke like this. They might have done, I don't know. But nonetheless, the Coen Brothers movies often have this specific kind of style when speaking. It is present here as well, but considering it is an abstract reconstruction, retelling of the Homer's Odyssey, I don't mind. It actually fits the characters, you can easily follow along, and it also makes for some very entertaining scenes with this quirky dialogue and even quirkier acting from our three main characters. So I appreciate it, but nonetheless, it is an unmistakably Coen Brothers movie. Every shot is tight, every shot is very well calculated, it is beautifully captured. The landscape is beautiful, even though it is color corrected, but it is color corrected to be, I guess, more beautiful in some way. And at no point do you feel some kind of dread or some kind of danger for our main characters, because it is very light-hearted. Kind of like the Ballad movie, I can't remember, where one of our actors in this movie also is there. I should look his name up. Tim Blake Nelson was also in that movie. So this is kind of the same. But nonetheless, I appreciate the acting. The acting is not magnificent, but for this kind of movie they're creating, the kind of universe they're creating, the acting is actually amazing in that regard. It is quirky, sometimes over the top, but it fits, it sells everything. I enjoyed every actor in this movie. They did a magnificent job considering the universe it is taking place in. Then there's the pacing in this movie. The pacing in this movie is what I expected. So it is kind of bumpy, but that is because this movie consists of a lot of mini adventures, just like the Odyssey. And again, I'm referencing the Homer's Odyssey a lot, but you kind of have to, considering this movie is a retelling of it. But don't worry if you haven't read it. It's been a fucking long ass time ago since I read it. I read it back when I was in, well, here we call it gymnasium, but I think in America they call it high school. It's kind of late high school. You only get into the gymnasium here when you are like 15 or 16. So yeah, but it's not like a gym where you work out. It's kind of a school. Just like Homer's Odyssey, you have these small pocket adventures that just they're kind of like a pearl on a string, where you have a beginning and you have an end, and on this grand adventure you have small pocket adventures. And every time we get to a pocket adventure, the movie kind of stops and gets to a halt. But it doesn't really, I won't say matter, but it doesn't affect you, or it doesn't annoy you as much, because those small adventures have a purpose, and more importantly, they're fucking fun to watch because they are weird. Very, very weird. But every time you get to a pocket adventure, then the pacing, takes a slow turn. And then once you're done with the adventure, it kind of picks up again until you get to the next adventure. Then you have to slow down to make sure that this adventure, completes itself, and then so on and so forth until we get to the ending. But here, as it is with a lot of movies and also stories and experiences and whatever, it is the journey, not the destination, that is the point of it. Especially if you have read or just know Homer's Odyssey, you might even have seen another movie who just more directly adapts the story material, but nonetheless, if you know it, at least remember some aspect of it, then you are having an even more fun time watching this movie, especially with the Cyclops, because you know what's gonna happen. Let's say how they're gonna defeat the Cyclops, but they might trick you, and then once they might be able to trick you, and you show the resolution of it, you go, right, because of, I forgot about that. But I don't know, that was the experience I had. But nonetheless, it's fun to see how they reconstruct the old trail from old Greece and then put it into, I would almost say, a modern Western. I don't know why it should make sense, but it does make sense. But don't get me wrong, they do take a lot of freedom to create an actually story in semi-modern times. So it changes a lot of things, but you do see some of the original source material kind of oozing throughout this movie. And I appreciate it. Then there's the music in this movie. It is phenomenal. Now it is basically just country songs, and a lot of country songs. And I don't listen to too much country music. It's not that I don't like it, I just don't, seek it out. But the songs that is in here, I think was well performed. I think they fitted the movie well. I think they actually brought the movie forward towards its own conclusion. And also just the non-musical aspect, just the orchestral music in this movie is fitting, it is light touching, it just brings you into a good mood. So there's a lot of things to really like about this movie. So is there anything you don't like about this movie? Well, if you don't like Homer's Odyssey, you won't like this movie. Probably. It's not guaranteed, but probably. Because of the small mini adventures, it kind of becomes tedious unless you appreciate that aspect. So if you don't appreciate that aspect, then you will kind of feel like this movie is dragging and wasting time. Also, the fact that the movie's resolution isn't really a resolution at all. I mean, you get the resolution of the movie and then the movie still keeps going. It still needs to do more stuff, even though that technically the movie has ended. Just need to go another 15-20 minutes, which is kind of annoying, but I understood why. Because there were some few plot threads we needed to tie up. But nonetheless, that is something you need to be worried about. And also the fact that this is a Coen Brothers movie, so people talk weird. Is that too wrong to say? Not as the problem, but it could be for some people. So what do you get from this movie? You get a funny retelling of Homer's Odyssey. You get some great acting, but they are very, very, very quirky. You get some beautiful shots. You get some funny humor that is... It's kind of out there, but... It grows on you. Unfortunately, the pacing is not as smooth as it could have been, but that is because of the story construction, even though that is not an excuse. It's just explaining why it is. So it could be divisive. And then there's also the fact that this movie, it ends too late. Is that something you can say? It ends too late? It ends before it ends, if I would say so. So I would say, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is worth watching and worth buying on Blu-ray. But beware, if you're not a fan of the other Coen Brothers movies, especially the Ballad of Bender, this guy over here, and the other movie material, then this movie won't win you over. It is the same thing that I've been doing before, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed it. And also, I know this movie came out like 19 years ago from this recording, but I've only first watched it now, and as you might have noticed, whenever I watch an older movie that I think is extraordinary or bad, or it's not as good as I remember it, in those aspects, then I feel like I need to review it, because there might be a lot of other people out there who have seen the movie pop up a few times on Netflix, but wasn't really convinced, should I watch it or should I not? So here's my first time experience with it. So, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Have you seen it? What did you think about it? And what is your favorite Coen Brother movie? Mine might still be No Country for Old Men. It might be true great, but I just didn't understand a word coming out of Jeff Bridges' mouth. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe I would understand more when I see it next time, but I don't know. But it was tightly constructed. Anyway, besides the point. What is your favorite Coen Brother movies? Whatever you think, come over me your thoughts. And as always, until I see you in the next video, remember to stay awesome. See ya.